Hey guys, this is Caustra here, and I'm back with episode 5 of Geometry-Science. This episode is basically a follow-up to the first episode where I'm going to try and answer all of your questions, and I also have something useful to introduce to all of you. Sorry for slacking off on uploads for this series recently. School's been pretty on and off right now. Some days are pretty chill, but some days I get like 2 hours of homework, many days in a row. Okay, so let's get into some of these questions. The first thing I want to address is mobile players. No, mobile players do not have 144 Hz. Any mobile device out there is most likely 60 Hz, because most devices are typically built for general use. Higher refresh rates are only useful for gaming purposes, and since most phones aren't specifically designed for gaming, it looks like higher refresh rates are exclusive to PC for a while. One other thing I have to address is about the finger delay thing. Since everyone around the world is genetically different from each other, some of the things I said may not apply to you as an individual. I have had some claims that say people do better with their thumbs, and that's completely fine. The facts I was showcasing were supposed to apply to the majority of the population. Next up is the 144 Hz straight fly debate. It's a classic one for sure. The higher refresh rate helps a little bit as it makes the game smoother, but that's not what I think causes it. I actually think it's the fact that the refresh rate isn't divisible by 60. When I was testing, I performed better on 100 Hz than I did on 120 Hz, and I believe that's because 100 cannot evenly be divided by 60, unlike 120. However, lowering your refresh rate below 60 isn't going to help with straight fly, because on 75 Hz, I found it was about the same as 60 Hz. So I believe the golden rule for straight fly is any refresh rate that's 100 Hz or higher, but not 120 Hz, 180 Hz, or 240 Hz. Another question I received was whether it was the FPS or the refresh rate that helped with GD. So, to break it down, the refresh rate is the maximum amount of FPS, or frames per second, your monitor will output. You will not be able to go over this number, but the refresh rate won't matter if you aren't reaching the same amount of FPS anyways. So you need both refresh rate and FPS to get the full effect. Some other comments were in regards to recording on 144 Hz. I just want to say it now, it's very hard to record on a laptop because the majority of laptops don't have graphics cards or 144 Hz. When you are recording on a laptop, the game is being run off of your CPU, as most CPUs have built-in graphics cards that aren't very suitable for gaming. They run games like Geometry Dash just fine, but when you try to record is where you start running into problems. Recording and Geometry Dash both use up a good amount of your CPU's usage, and thus causes massive performance dips. When you have a graphics card, however, Geometry Dash is being run off the graphics card instead of your processor, and the recording software is using just your processor, and you don't experience much FPS loss because there's two different devices handling two different operations. It's also usually because the lowest ends of graphics cards obliterate the built-in CPU graphics by a long shot. Also, some people were asking about VSync and whether it affects your response time or your FPS and refresh rate. For some lower-end computers, VSync drops FPS, but that's usually only in older laptops, and those are all 60 Hz, so it's not a problem. One last thing was whether connecting a monitor to a laptop would have an effect. And while it does, it's very small, but it would heavily depend on the cable you are using. A DVI, HDMI, or DisplayPort cable would only add about 1 extra millisecond of delay, which really won't do anything. Older cables like VGA will add a 5 to 10 millisecond delay, which starts to have an effect, but it's only a concern if your input also has a lower than normal delay. Now that I'm through with the questions, I want to make a quick announcement. I set up a Discord server for anyone who's interested in learning more about the series, or if anyone wants to participate in polls for data towards the series, or even if you want to contribute some suggestions towards episodes for the series. I'm open to any suggestions or questions you guys have to ask, and I do enjoy answering them, as I learn from them too. I plan on continuing the series for a while now, as there are a lot of things I can still cover, but until then, feel free to either subscribe or maybe give the Discord server a look because I'm sure you won't regret it. Peace.